Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. Firstly, I have to apologize for the slight delay in getting started. We're just waiting for a few more people to join the call. My name is Charles Green, and here at Bellatrix Software, I'm responsible for creating our thought leadership. And we frequently publish reports on the key trends in software and mobile development, covering a range of different topics. But one of the questions that we're asked most about by our customers when starting a project is which technology stack they should use. And there are a variety of different options to choose from native development to React Native, and also a newcomer as well, which is Google Flutter. So to help you determine which is the best option and what are the factors to consider in your decision, I'm delighted to be joined by three of Bellatrix's experts today, Hansi Schmidt, Jose Montana, and Nestor Mendez. First, I'd like to ask you each to introduce yourselves quickly. Let's start with Jose, who's based in Bogota.
Right. Hello, everyone. It's really nice to have you all here in this conversation about this exciting topic. My full name is Jose Luis Montana Hernandez. I am an electronic engineer from here, from Bogota, but I have been working in software development since 9 years now. I have been doing development for several different platforms. I started with backend development for .NET servers, but then moved to Ruby on Rails. Right now, I'm working with Node.js and also working in the front end since 4 years ago. And I have been working with React since 2.5 years ago now, and also doing some developments and some projects with React Native. That's my recent experience.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And Nestor?
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Nestor Mendez. I am a developer engineer for Bellatrix since 1 year ago. I have been developing mobile applications since 10 years ago. I have very experience in the area. For that reasons, I will defend the native side for development in mobile applications. Also, I have some experience on web development, and also a little bit knowledge about the React Native, technology. So this is this will be a good conversation for us. So welcome.
Yeah, excellent, thank you. And here in Lima, together with me, we have Hansi Schmidt. Hansi, choose some.
Hello, my name is Hansi. I am a software developer with more than 10 years experience. I started with PHP and Python, and right now working with Android as a software developer on Bellatrix here. In this webinar, I will be in charge of defending the Flutter side.
Okay, super, thank you. I'd just like to remind everyone that if you do want to ask a question, then we'll be delighted to take any of your questions. And you can ask the things either via the chat box on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, or via Twitter, where we'll be tweeting using the hashtag TechBSF. But without further ado, I'd like to kick off the discussion and really ask you, each of you, about your different specialities and different technologies that you're focused on, and ask you about some of the pros and the cons of the main technology stacks. So perhaps let's kick off with React Native.
Well, guys, starting with React, I think that the domain of this topic or this debate is the one with the biggest experience after the native development. So, I mean, it's been here in the playground since a lot. So, compared with Flutter, obviously. So, their maturity point is very high. It's also there are a lot of other benefits. For example, one of the biggest things that React developers and React lovers actually like to diffuse is the fact that you can at some point reuse a big portion of your code base, and also it is important to notice here that when you are developing with React Native, you actually might not need a different skill set in your team, because it is actually it wrote the React applications, React Native applications are actually wrote using JavaScript or TypeScript. So it's some kind of benefits, very few benefits of them. But in the other side, there are some cons that kind of affect the development of new applications with React. Sometimes it is very difficult to implement special hardware manipulation functionalities. It's been difficult, even though the React team has been working and the community have been working to make it simpler to interact better with native applications. I mean, with native with applications that are already there, but sometimes it is difficult right now. So that is the biggest con and disadvantage of React Native. Also, as well as if you compare with Flutter, that actually we are very excited about this new technology. The performance in terms of the UI composition and construction is not that good compared with Flutter. So that's it.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for the overview. And now I'd like to turn to kind of native development and ask Nestor about that, and just give us an overview of kind of the pros and the cons of native development.
Thank you, Charles. Yes, of course. The native development is oriented to those applications that you have very integrated with the hardware or the device that you are programming in that platform. I mean, if your application needs to communicate for those kind of functionalities that depends of the hardware or depends of the device that you use to the application. For example, for Android devices or for iOS devices, or for Windows mobile devices, the best options is developed in native way. Why? Because all the APIs that the platform offered you, it's all integrated to the language that you are developing. For example, if you are developed in iOS platform, you have Swift or you have Objective-C. So all the APIs that you have, all the APIs that you need are integrated to the language. So it's more difficult to find a developer that has that kind of experience on that kind of development, and in some point it's more expensive because it's more difficult to find it, but it's necessary to when you will need to develop that kind of application. So there is so much pros on the side of the hybrid applications or hybrid development, like Jose says, but for some cases, like I mentioned, there is more easy, or there is more efficient develop in native way. So
okay, excellent, thank you. And now I'd like to turn to one of the newcomers in terms of the choices that companies have, and that's Google Flutter. So Hans, you can perhaps give us an overview of Google Flutter and also some of the kind of pros and the cons.
Yeah, of course, Charles. First, Flutter is based on Dart, and the big thing I think is really easy to learn. So if you have a free weekend, you can learn really fast Flutter. You do not need to know Android or iOS for most applications, so you can unify the development process using Flutter. There is also a feature, a really good feature on Flutter that is hard reload, that allows you to do a chain on your code and you see instantly on your application. Also, Flutter have a lot of what we call widgets for designing different widgets and screen on Flutter, and it's really beautiful and expressive. The big con is, I think, is we are not yet on the 1.0 version, so there is a lot of changes happening right now. I think 2 weeks ago was a new version with more widgets for iOS, Cupertino widgets. Also, another con is that there are some features that are not correctly done or not yet, for example, making maps on Flutter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned there that kind of developer productivity. I was actually recently speaking with the CTO of one of our customers who's now using Flutter, and he spoke about the fact that the developers in his team managed to increase their productivity by his estimate by about 10 times because of this hot reload feature that enables you to see straight away the changes that you've made. Is that something which you found as well in your experience?
Yeah, in fact, you can do most small applications really fast within 1 week, 2 weeks. I am not sure if 10 times, but you will have a more productive writing Flutter application. In fact, big companies like Alibaba are working with Flutter right now.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. And actually, we just have I'm not sure if it's a tongue-in-cheek question from one person on the line today. And that question is, why do so many Android and iOS developers hate Flutter? Is that really the case? People hate it? Or?
No, we don't hate.
That is a tricky question. Yeah,
I think. Sorry, Jose, you go first.
No, I was going to say that it was exactly the same when React Native came out. I mean, I had a lot of friends that were developing for Android with Java and for iOS, and they said, "Oh, come on, man! It's not going to perform. Never, it's going to perform in exactly the same way." So, I mean, it's obviously it's true at some point, but things tend to evolve in the way that they are a better options for organizations and for business, not for you cannot take only the point of view of a developer. That is what I will say.
Mm-hmm. And Nestor, I think you were about to say something as well.
Yeah, I don't think that iOS or Android or native developers hate Flutter. I think there are so many differences between the platforms. So we invest so much time in the perfection of the application or the perfectionist of the code, or we knowledge about the platform. So when came out that this kind of platform or this kind of technology is weird to us, try to accept that easy, right? So, but it's not. I think it's not hate. Hate is a strong word. it's more like it's so different between so many differences between the platforms, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, what I see is not hate, but some features of how you write the code on Flutter, they are not like Android and iOS developers that are used to another form of thinking when developing application. I think that it's mostly unique to get used to programming on Flutter.
I think this is actually a pretty good segue into the next part of the presentation, where I will ask you, about your opinion about what you think is which is the best technology stack. Is there a top choice, or at least what are some of the factors that will lead you to making that decision?
Well, should I talk first? Okay, so from my point of view, there is never like the perfect combination of tech that will sort every problem that you might find in the future. What you can at least do is prepare in the best way that you can, and use the technologies or the tools that you have at your hand um, in the way that they are supposed to, or in the way in the thing that they better behave. So, for example, I'm pretty sure, and I have to accept this as a React Native developer, that Flutter has a huge advantage when it is about UI composition. You know, so let's say that if you're building a new Twitter application that is very, very heavy, and the construction of the UI is going to be very heavy, man, you have to do Flutter because it's the best. I mean, when in terms of cross-platform, it's just awesome right now. It's doing very good. But that's it. I mean, even though it is in a beta right now, there is a lot of development that needs to do. But if you change and think about your business, then is when you need to think this question better. Which is the tech stack? Which tech stack is better? So, in terms of stability, React Native is going to be better. If you compare right up today, I will say that Flutter might have around 3,000 issues open versus around 600 or 700 open for React Native. So in terms of stability, for your business security, it might be better to work with the most stable platform. And we can wait until Flutter evolves in the way we all are expecting it to evolve.
I think it's a crucial point there you make there, right? It's about the business, right? About what stage is your business in? What are the implications for your business? What are the financial implications? What about the speed of being able to make the implementation? And what are some of the investments that your company is going to need?
Exactly, that's correct. Because at the end of the day, you're building your applications to solve one business problem. So you don't want to have any other problems. I mean, you're trying to solve one specific problem, and you are developing an application to solve that problem. You don't want to get more problems when developing it.
Exactly. What would you say, if you were to look at what are, say, the top 2 or 3 criteria for choosing your technology stack, what would you put there?
Why would I choose Flutter? Was that the question?
Or why, if you were to choose, if you were looking at some of the criteria in which to make your decision about regard of Flutter or React Native or taking native, what would be, say, the 2 or 3 top the criteria in which you can make that decision?
Okay, so first, the business. Okay, so from the business point of view, I will see which one is more stable. Then I will go what kind of technology that business is going to require. So if I'm going to need a lot of use of the hardware of each specific device, or if I am pointing to a very specific segment of customers, I will take into account if developing a native application is better. But if the amount of hardware usage is not that big, you can go with React Native. You know, so, and like I said before, if your application is going to have a very intensive UI construction, what Flutter right now is the best in the playground, I will choose Flutter. So it all depends in this, but 2 criteria. I mean, your business, what technology are you going to will you need to use in terms of hardware, And then if it is going to be too UI composition intensive, so I will use that.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Any other perspectives from Nestor or Hansi?
Yeah, I can give another perspective. In my case, I consider first what is your use case as my partner was saying, if you are heavy on using hardware, maybe Flutter is not your best option, but you can use, because with Flutter you can combine with native code, so you can combine your iOS or Android with code, because maybe you have some libraries that already have your business logic that you don't want to redo on Flutter. But also, you need to consider how easy it is to get new developers on your platform, because as you might notice, there is not that many Android and iOS developers right now. So the focus on Flutter is getting maybe web developers to do mobile development. So maybe Flutter is another option, because a lot of people are moving to Flutter right now. Also, well, that is what I'm going to say.
Okay, sure, thank you.
I think if you allow me, Charles, I think the Jose opinions is the right one. All depends of your business and your business logic, because if you like he said, if you need to use very hardware, like I don't know, the camera, the contacts of the user, or I don't know, so much hardware devices, you really have to use the native development. But I think Jose missed one little detail, that is the money, because also you have to think in the money, because like I say at the beginning of the meeting of this webinar, the developers, the native developers is more expensive than a web developer or a JavaScript development. So also you need to have to think in the money and the time that you will expend on the development of the application, because if you think on development on native platform, but you need to development in for the main two platforms, that is Android and iOS, and you don't have all the money, or you don't have so much time on for expended that kind of time or money, maybe you can choose to hybrid technologies. So I to the three options that Jose mentioned, I will add the money and the time that you have for development the application.
It's a great one. I'm actually just seeing we have another question from the audience, which has just come in, which is related very much to the discussion right now. And that question is, which framework would you recommend for a banking application, and why?
Okay, so for banking applications, guys, I will say that for banking applications, when you have to very cautious in terms of security and securing your apps, I will say that it will be a decision in between going 100% native or going in at some part hybrid application. Just because native applications give you like a wide different kind of possibilities for controlling and securing your applications, and it's better to be very sure that your application is 100% secure for your customers. With React Native and Flutter, there are some a very small how do you say that, point of uncertainty for 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 companies like involved in the banking. For example, this year we found that someone was trading on our node packages. So node packages can be hacked at some point, and some of them, or some team might choose a package that actually is hacked. So it's very difficult to have a 100% control over what packages are you using and if they are secure or not. So I would prefer to have a hybrid application, a hybrid approach, not a 100 in React Native or 100, a Cordova or 100 Flutter. I will go with hybrid applications.
Yeah, I think one benefit of having the Go as a hybrid application is that it's really easy to decompile an Android application to the original code, but on Flutter, for example, there are no tools yet to decompile the code. So while it's security, biosecurity is a little thing that can help, but I think the most part is how do you manage the code? It's not. I think it doesn't depend on what platform are you using, but how your developers are doing the code and securing the code and sending the message between your server and your application.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's besides the fact that you have to choose between the native platforms or the hybrid platforms, I think there are so many mechanisms for the security of application as security of communications between the applications and your server and the web service endpoint. So for my side, and I remember that iOS platform, when you finish the application and you have to send to the store to publish the application, the people of iOS analyze all the code and analyze all the classes and the programming of your application. So that guarantees that your application is very secure or will be very secure, and if they detect some vulnerabilities on your code or your application, they will report to you and they reject the publication of the application. So I think the most secure for the cases of the banks is the native approach.
Okay, excellent, thank you. I'd like to now move on a little bit and ask you a further question, which is about which is the best technology stack for deploying across platforms. Do you have a preference there?
So the best tech stack for deploying across platforms. It's very difficult question right now. I mean, because we have different criteria, and we have been discussing about this since the beginning. So I will say that from my point of view, even though that I am very excited about Flutter, I will say that the more stable platform and it's right now is React Native. Even though it has some disadvantages and with all that, but right now the best player is React Native from some different point of view, from a lot. So, for example, like summing up the disadvantages of developing 100% native applications, it's going to be more expensive, for example. So you have to have a Android team if you require one Android team, or an iOS team, a web team, also a backend team. So you can get rid of at least of 2 of those using React Native. Because it is the only one that at some part can share code between the web and the application. and the mobile application. So from my point of view, up to today, React Native is the best choice for this.
I think I afraid that I differ with you, Jose. I think the React Native is very powerful platforms today because counts with a bunch of developers that migrates from React to React Native kind of with the same or with the same knowledge and the same point of view or the same way to program or to develop in React. You have to or you could develop in React Native. So I think it's very powerful for that side and for the community and the sorry, and the support that React has and React Native also has. But I think the best way for developer or for developing an app is native, because all the components and all the code that you develop and that you create, it's integrate with all the interface and with all the elements of the devices. So I think it's more integrated, it's more efficient to communicate with the APIs and with the endpoints and all the communications. And I think is the native platform is the best way to develop an application. Sorry, Jose.
No. I mean, I will say that actually Shansi is going to agree at some point with what I said. For example, if you take into account, one of the most amazing things about Flutter is the beautiful UIs that you can develop with it, and you can with the hot reloading, you can test things right away after making a very small change or even a large change. And it's the same.
I agree with
for
that. I agree
yes.
with that.
So it's the same with React Native, because React Native uses the native components for each specific DOIs. And I mean, and there are huge advantages in the fact that you can share skill sets of your team to develop for your mobile apps and your web apps. And also, well, comparing Flutter and React Native, for example, the fact that React Native uses native components for each specific platform. In the other hand, Flutter actually compiles the Dart code into ARM, a specific code for each platform too. So it's going to perform better. So I will say that taking those into account and not, I mean, I'm not going to say waste money, but avoid investing money in 100% focus Android team and 100% iOS team. You can just reduce a little bit the budget for those teams and enlarge the team that is going to be shared across platforms, and go for a hybrid. I mean, why not both? Like, have you seen this picture on internet? Why not having both?
Yeah, I also think the same. For me, the best way will be using, for example, in my case, Flutter for most of the screens, and maybe have an Android and iOS team for some specific features of each platform. Also, I saw yesterday that the performance in Flutter is sometimes so fast that it's way better than iOS native code in some cases.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, everyone. Sorry
about that. So one little thing that I will say that one of the advantages that I see developing for native applications, I mean 100%, is that you can actually focus and get teams that are specialized, giving awesome experiences for each one of those platforms. So Android developers are very excited and always have been like that about giving awesome experiences for Android devices and awesome UIs as the same as iOS. So that is something awesome. That is why you cannot leave them out of the team. They have to be always in there because they know specifics about how the users of each platform are used to be. I mean, what they like, what is the best UI approach and UX approach for each specific platform. So I would say that you have to keep, you cannot be selfish. You have to share and have yes, a very diverse team when you are building.
It's very true. It's very true. And also, they say that the thing that you said before, for example, when I start to develop in React Native, I start to communicate with a part of my team that I never spoke with him, with him. But when I start to develop in React Native, start talking with him because he developed in React. So we started sharing all the knowledge and all the code and the advices that both of us has. So it's very interesting and it's very comfortable to talk with all your teams. Also, but for the other side, it's very difficult to request to one native developer to change the things or the way that we think in the native way, that we change all the knowledge and all the paradigms and all the code to the React way to think. That is a tricky part of the changes for the one platform to another. Also, when you try to change the web development to the mobile development or native, 100% native development, is basically the same.
Yeah, super. And actually, we've got an interesting question which has just come in from the audience, which is about Xamarin. Do you have any thoughts there about Xamarin?
Yes. So when I started developing working as a software developer, I started using .NET framework. So I got very used to that. Right now, I tried, like 1 year ago, I guess, or a little more, I tried to use Xamarin, but it became too complicated to manage the NuGet packages, especially that, and also wasn't that easy to build the UIs. It's not that easy to build the UIs with Xamarin. So, or when I was trying that. So then I give it a try to where I compared with React native, and man, it's just too easy and kind of just leaves Xamarin out of the game just because of that. And I didn't look back to Xamarin again after that. That's all my thoughts about Xamarin. So I don't know if they make changes to this and if it is working better, but that's all.
Yeah, super, thank you. Now just moving on to the last question we have for today, and that is, how hard is it to change between technologies? And I'd like to kind of ask you that perhaps from your individual developer perspective, but also from an organizational perspective as well.
So change technologies is always a very important step in an organization. If you are required to change your technology, dealing with the supporting your legacy technology is one of the most important things here. So you have to pick the new technology have to play in the best way with your legacy things. So with your legacy stuff. So it's always been going to be difficult. So there is not like one winning advice to switch between technologies. It's always going to be difficult. You have to plan very well for that. You have to plan what portion of your code is going to go with the new technology, with React Native. If you're going to maintain a hybrid application, then you need to know what parts are going to be easier or more important to migrate. So, and sometimes to change technology, but only for new features. So which technology, talking about React Native and Flutter, plays better with hybrid applications? So I will say that we're talking about here the two best players in this game. And I will say that again, given that Flutter is a beta right now, I will say that picking React Native is going to be the best option, at least for the next year. Once we get release version of Flutter, we will re-evaluate the possibilities.
I think Jose comments or say something before in a question before that you can't avoid in a team of developers has at least one developer for each application for each platform. Excuse me, because you need to know when you use some components or another. So with that thing or with that fact that you if you have at least one developer for each application, I think you need to take the decision at the beginning of the project if you will develop your application on native platforms or an hybrid platforms. I don't know, but I don't know any cases that migrates from native application to hybrid application. But in the opposite way, if you start with an hybrid application, in some points maybe you should need migrate from that kind of platform to native technology, because maybe you could need to communicate more with the APIs and with the hardware of the device. So I don't know if Jose or Hansi knows one case that changed the platform from the native to the hybrid, but I think it's interesting to know.
Yeah, so in our case, in the Flutter case, for example, in Alibaba, what they were doing was converting parts of the native code to Flutter code. In fact, that is one of the good points of Flutter, that you can embed the runtime and any part of your Android or iOS code, so you can have part Android code, part Flutter code in your application. Also in Bellatrix, we have a client that is converting the whole application from native to Flutter. I am not sure. And I don't remember the name right now, but yeah, there are cases from migrating from native code to Flutter.
Interesting. And I think also, Nestor, you mentioned whilst we were kind of discussing in the preparation for this webinar, you gave the example of Airbnb, for example.
Yes, I guess that you're talking to me. Yes, Airbnb recently announced that they were not being, they were failing to reach their goals in terms of technology. So they decided to make the switch from React Native to native applications. And some of the reasons that they said were like they want to maintain the quality bar. It was too difficult to maintain it with React Native approach. They wanted to move faster, but I mean, like they said, I mean, it is not all bad. And also, React Native is also maturing. It's still maturing, and they had to do too many tweaks to make the whole application works in the way they wanted. So that was, I mean, when you have a very large application, sometimes it gets harder to maintain with React Native because some other disadvantages of the framework. So I think that it's not going to be like the bottom line. I mean, it's not going to be all the companies are not going to follow the example of Airbnb. For example, Uber Eats, their restaurant application is still using React Native. So I will say that things, newcomers will come here, and some others will need to change, maybe to Flutter, because the promises in Flutter are and the expectations are really high. So it's going to be always like that. Like it's always been. I mean, before we had backend developers working 100% focused on that. A few years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, we got serverless applications, and then they opened a whole bunch of new opportunities to do. So you're not tied to one specific language for developing your backend, because you don't have a server that is actually tying you to one specific technology. Today, you can develop your backend using functions in Node.js, in Ruby, or .NET Core, or Python. So technology is evolving, and it's still maturing. It's every day changing. But what we can do as our business evolves, we need to check what technology is the best fit for us. That's
Exactly. I think that is my point. Maybe a good decision is to start with hybrid applications or the hybrid technology, because you have the capacity to develop with the same code for each platform, right? But eventually, maybe your target people request more and more functionalities, and that functionalities or that evolving of your application is faster than the evolving of the framework or the technology that you pick. So in that cases, in the most of the cases, the hybrid technologies or the hybrid code or the hybrid applications migrate to native application because needs more performance of any functionality that hybrid application don't have. That is my point. I don't know any case that migrate whole application from the native code to the hybrid code. I think that is the reason that the Jose says is the reason, because the evolving of your application or your business is faster than the evolving of the technology or the hybrid platforms.
Yes, sure. Thank you. I notice we're nearly at the top of the hour now, so I want to open this up for questions to the audience. Just a quick reminder that if you want to ask a question, you can do so either by typing into the chat box on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, or you can tweet us your question using the hashtag TechBSF. I know we've been taking a few questions during the course of the discussion. I'd like to give it a couple minutes to see if we have any further questions coming in. And actually, whilst we're waiting for that, in the preparation for the webinar, the people that registered the webinar were able to leave a question as they registered. And one of the questions that was there was about front-end technologies and about the front-end technology stack, kind of React, Vue, Angular. And they said working on cross-browsing, so compatibilities with Internet Explorer 10. Is that still worth the pain? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Oh, that's a very big question. Right now, there is a very popular image on the internet where people says there are like 14 standards for doing one specific thing, and we will need to create a new standard that kind of gather them all. And you, at the end of the day, end up with 15 different standards. So it's something similar happens with when you are picking like the right technology for or tech stack for fintech applications or platforms. I will say that you need to pick the technologies that is the best fit for each layer of your platform. I have always been changing, and I got very used to switch from technologies. So I'm kind of polyglot in terms of programming languages. So you are able nowadays. You are able to create your platform in a layer architecture and say, okay, for this I'm going to pick this because it performs better. So or this, I'm going to, for the security layer, I'm going to choose this because of some specific reason. It gives me more flexibility in terms of managing that specific layer of the whole platform. So I wouldn't say, and I wouldn't have like one solution for all the fintech problems. But right now, what we are facing is that we have options and possibilities. There is always something that is very important, and is that you need to work in terms of, well, when you are in an organization, in a business, you need to work in terms of your budget, okay, and in terms of how fast can you deliver value to your customers. So you have to pick the technology that enables you to deliver faster, sometimes cheaper, and have the return of your investment very fast to that. So it's not about technology all the time. Sorry to say that, but it's a shame because as developers, we always want to use the best technologies, the best standards, the best patterns, but never is going to be the perfect moment to do that. So you have to work with the things that the business pays lets you to work with. That's what I will say.
Yeah, that is true. It's very difficult for developers to think in one technology or in one platform to specialize our studies, because when you go to the work or to the job market, they don't pay or they don't search that kind of technology that you study. So it's very difficult to decide what kind of technology that you want you have, and for that reason you need to be integral. You need to be or try to be or try to study or try to know one or two or three or four technologies to it's sad to say, but it's true. That is the jungle.
Absolutely. I see at the moment we don't have any further questions at the moment, so I think it's time to bring the session to a close. So firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for joining today's session, and also a big thank you to each of you, to Hansi, Jose, and Nestor for sharing your expertise. I should mention that a recording will be available within the next 24 hours, so you can find that on our website or on our YouTube channel. But just to bring it to a close, I'd like to see if each of you if you have any final thoughts that you would like to leave the audience with, and perhaps we can start in Colombia with either Jose or Nestor, and then we can finish up here in Lima.
Okay, guys. So my summary is just please think about your business and use the technology that best fits your pace and that enables you to deliver value as fast as you can, because the business is about that. Give the value as fast as you can and have a return of your investment very fast. So don't get married with one specific technology. Just deliver fast, and that's good.
Yes, my summary will be, I think, is you always have to study and to try to know all the technologies that is in market, at least a piece of that technology. And also, like Jose say, try to, if you are a developer, that is the side of the developer. If you are entrepreneurship, I think you have to think a little bit in the future, a little bit in the way that the application will be evolved in time. So try to saw that picture in the that big picture in the future, and try to pick the technology that will offer you the best option to evolve in the time or on the timeline of or your application. So I think is my humble opinion.
Well, I consider that use Flutter if you consider that you need a quick turnaround with your project, but maybe either if you start with Flutter or React Native or native code, consider that there are other choices that maybe you will need to use later, and probably we will get new technologies the next year that we may want to use because they are faster or better or cheaper. So don't get stuck on one technology and try others.
Super. Thank you to each of you once again for sharing your knowledge and your expertise today. Just a final note to the audience: if you have any additional questions that you didn't get a chance to ask, or something comes to mind when listening to the recording, then please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You know, we're hoping we've demonstrated our passion for the topic today, so we'll be delighted to continue the conversation with you. With that, I'd like to say thank you once again, and have a good rest of the day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye.